Hello and welcome to the Dad and Buried podcast. As always, my name is Mike. I am your host, also known as Dad and Buried. I mixed it up a little bit that time. I didn't say
Yeah, you did.
AKA. Here with my co-host Pete. Say
Yep.
hello, Pete.
Hi, I am the founder of drop shipping marketing that you've seen on the internet. Thank you very much. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
you were a poor man's Michael Fassbender. All right, so
I'm all of it.
we are back this week, the week before Father's Day. Are you doing anything special for Father's Day?
I don't know. I'm not sure what we're doing for Father's Day. It's still being sort of organized as we speak, but it doesn't sound like anything is being.
It doesn't sound promising.
Yeah, no, it's not promising.
Have you ever woken up on like Father's Day and it was like your family had planned a whole bunch of stuff for you that was all like a surprise?
No, I usually have gotten ahead of Father's Day and being like, okay, so this is what I'd like to do, which is just like I'd really appreciate. I like to employ the Mother's Day tactic, which is, my wife can do whatever she wants. She can go, be with the family for a very short period of time, and then really kind of just open it up and just decide what she wants.
So I saw an interesting. So first of all, there's this whole thing where supposedly like women want to stay and do stuff with the kids and men don't. I find it the opposite. But the other thing I was going to say is I saw an interesting thing, like a meme or something on online somewhere where somebody was like, it's good that Father's Day comes after Mother's Day so that we can,
Yeah.
dads can make sure they deliver in order to get reciprocated, right? So that's how it works, the symbiosis, right? So
well, not only that, but you can exactly. So if you basically mess up Mother's Day, you know that Father's Day is coming around. So it's like a equal opportunity way to really kind of
right, exactly. If you blow it,
you hold your own fate in your own hands by really blowing Mother's Day. So
and like you said, like if you want a specific thing or whatever, or you know what you want is maybe a little bit bigger than you normally want, you set the precedent for what you do for her, and then hope she reciprocates, or you can like ask for, hey, without being too gross about it, but being like,
hey, listen, fireworks in the bedroom is what I'm talking about. That was actually a big mistake. I shouldn't have done that because that was really it was a lot of fire and very scary. But hey, you know what I'm saying?
At least you got to learn from your mistakes, Pete.
Yeah, exactly. I have a growth mindset, so I'm all good.
So tonight, or whenever you're listening to this, could be afternoon.
Could be in the morning. We don't know.
Maybe you listen to it multiple times. If so, thank you. We're going to be talking about whether kids these days are independent, whether your own kids and our listeners' kids are independent, whether we think kids in general are more independent than we were when we were kids, and also why.
That, and also just to what extent, given that, have we overcorrected, right? So with this independence, are we making them more independent? Are we making them less independent? Did we blow this whole thing by like giving too much of ourselves to these offspring, I guess?
Are we too involved, you're saying?
Yeah. Are we so involved they can't possibly be independent?
Right. So we have whether not even necessarily coddling, but by wanting to take care of them and like thinking we're doing the best possible thing for them by being
necessarily
coddling.
I think necessarily coddling, yes. I think coddling.
Well, that's part of it, right? But it's also we're thinking we're doing the right thing. Like this is better parenting than it used to be. But by doing that, we may be stripping them of something fundamental that they can't get back.
That's right. And that word is overcorrected. Okay, we might be overcorrecting our parents' mistakes, and all of a sudden, here we are creating a new set of problems. A classic human trait.
I didn't know that's what you meant by overcorrecting, right? And I was waiting for you to explain to me. So you think we're overcorrecting the work of previous generations, thinking we're more enlightened, and we're going to raise our kids so far differently than what our parents did. Yeah. We think we're doing the right thing, but it's a trade-off.
So far, we are raising our kids with so much love, they literally can't fucking do anything. You know what I mean? They can't cut with a sharp knife because they're 13. I've never used a sharp knife before. Hey, guess what? Guess who's guilty? This guy.
A few years ago, I wrote a blog post.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I wrote a blog post that was like, like, were my parents too good for me to like be successful? Right? Which is kind of like
Yes.
right. My
What a
parents
what a
were too
premise.
loving, and
You know what? My parents were too great.
they gave me too good of a life for me to like have the work ethic or killer instinct or whatever to succeed. So I'm blaming my parents
That
for
is
being good parents. Yeah,
unbelievably amazing.
it
That
is.
is in a phenomenal way
It's a
of,
good.
yeah. You know
It's a
what?
good
And
blog post.
it's a very interesting stance, and thankfully you are, I think, self-reflexive enough to be able to put that, because I don't think everybody has that amount of self-reflection.
Well,
And I'm thinking what we should do is just say, look, okay, before our kids get too much older, because whoa, just slow down here, kids, stop growing for a second. But what's going to happen is now this next gen, right? That's a phrase that I've
it
coined.
stands for
So,
generation. Am I correct? Is it? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. This next gen that's coming up, yeah. What kind of, what are we bringing to the table? We just had millennials. They've killed everything, right? Or so it's been said.
Have
But
they?
really, it just turns out that it's just things have evolved much faster, and there's people that are not able to understand that level of change. There's also things that are systemically wrong that we're addressing at the same time as just like incredible amounts of over information as
Mm-hmm.
well as incorrect information. And so here,
Misinformation.
misinformation, sure. And here we are, you, me, and you listening to this bloody podcast going, what the fuck did I do to have, like, how come my 13-year-old can't use a sharp knife? What did I do? I really fucked this up.
So it's funny because I think that's one thing I wanted to talk about, one aspect of it. We're not going to get into it just yet. Want to thank everybody for listening. We will be right back. We're going to
Okay.
get into it.
Oh.
I was closing out. That was the whole
Oh, I
show.
like it. Yeah, just shut it all down. Yeah, right after this. We're going to get right back into it right after
Right
this.
back into it.
All right.
All right, welcome back to the Dad and Buried Show. Is that what we call it? The Dad and Buried Podcast? I think we had a conversation at the beginning. The show or podcast. The epic saga. The tragedy, actually, of the Dad and Buried tragedy. So we're talking about, independent kids and how our parenting may have doomed them forever.
Correcting may have
We thought we were so much better than the previous generations that, you know what? We went too far.
Yeah, I think, well, so let me just kind of open it with this little anecdote.
Okay. Wait.
Yes. What is it, Mike?
I want to remind everybody where they can listen to us.
Oh, my
wherever
God.
you're listening. Throw us some reviews.
You know what? There's people right now with headphones on that have just thrown them on the ground. And I forgot how to listen to you guys. Thank you.
You know what? I think it's more like, their expectations have gotten too high. We need to bring them back down. We're normally not this polished. This is more the experience.
Yeah. Look, just listen to us wherever you can. I will ask, like, guys, let's give us a rating, maybe. That would help. Subscribe. That would be awesome.
And if you want, watch us on YouTube so you can see what we're wearing, how we look tonight. Just check in, say hello.
And boy, man, this boy band is not going to put itself together because we are looking sharp together.
Did you know that I hired one of my kids to help do me up, put some makeup on before we go on air?
Oh, is that right?
One of his chores. I didn't hire him. It's one of his chores.
Okay, good. It's one of his.
I wouldn't let that kid near me with like a makeup brush, let alone a sharp knife. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, all right, guys. Well, so here's here's where it all began. Here's where it all went wrong. Where I started to realize where the wheels sort of came off the proverbial bus. So to say.
As a parent, you mean?
Yeah. So I'm a coach of my kids' soccer team, and actually both of my kids, my 7-year-old and my 11-year-old, and but I was kind of, there's actually two of us, and we're kind of helping, and so I'm coaching one team, and the other coaches on the coaching the other side, and so there's a lot of, these are 7-year-old boys. I mean, there is not a lot of attention span amongst.
Oh yeah.
So they're kind of out there, like they don't really know what's going on.
But this is soccer, right?
This is soccer. This is soccer. Sorry, good call. Yeah. So this is soccer.
You said that. I just wanted to make sure.
I just do
that.
Yeah. So, trying to teach the basics. First of all, this is a team sport, and I think that's really important
I
because
have heard.
part of it is this isn't just like tennis or this isn't just an individual sport. This is soccer. So you're doing soccer for a reason, like you would do baseball. You're part of a team. This is how your parent has chosen you to be in this environment. Okay. And then, by the way, the league is a very sort of, it's non-competitive. Everybody plays. Like, it doesn't matter your skill level. It's just like,
Everybody gets a trophy.
right. Yeah. Everybody gets to get yelled at by me. Everybody. Doesn't matter what your race is. It does matter what your gender is.
Hope not.
No, because you're going to get yelled at by me because you're on my team. So
Do other coaches yell?
Very few. I'm absolutely the most obnoxious asshole out there. But anyway, in a good way. I'm very encouraging.
Just to watch you.
Yeah. So I'm out there, and so one of my players, one of these boys, was out there, and I'm telling him, I'm like, dude, you got you're in defense, but you're playing the midfield line, and it's like right next to the action. I'm like, you got to get back because the team's you got to play your position, right? And I'm and within like 30 seconds of kind of making this over and over again, a breakaway happens, and it was the lamest goal you've ever seen. The ball just kind of trickles in, and the defender's nowhere to be seen, and so it goes in. So okay, that happens, no problem. But it's what we call in the sports business a teachable moment. So I was like, hey man. So the reason that it's like, no problem, we're going to come back at him. But here's the deal. You weren't in your position. And they scored because you weren't in your position.
This
specifically.
Is your son, you're saying?
No, this is a different kid.
Okay.
And I'm not yelling at him. I'm just explaining. I'm like, hey man, you got to be in your position because otherwise that kind of thing is going to happen.
Fuck up, kids, right? You're like.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Internally, I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, you absolute moron. Why were after I literally
G's on that game.
I swear to God, I had so much money riding on that. No, but I had literally just said, get back in position. Like the action's all happening on the one end, and I had I was like, look, you need to get back. You're way too far up because something's going to happen. And I had told him like 5 or 6 times. And it's not just one. There's 2 defenders, of course, but I'm writing the other one completely off.
All right.
So I was talking to him, and the quarter ended, and just as the quarter ended, I was having this conversation, and just as I finished talking to him, this little boy, this 7-year-old boy, I turned around, and his father came right up to him, like I'm within 5 inches away, and says, "Don't worry, it could have happened to anyone. It's not your fault." Okay? He goes, "Don't worry, it could happen to anyone. It's not your fault."
What did you do?
Here's what I did. I immediately filled with rage. And then I put it in a little black box, and I stuffed it way down inside. And I was like, this is going in the podcast, son. You've made it in the podcast.
Like I said, where it belongs. So hopefully.
So basically, I had trouble sleeping. I'll just say that. I had trouble sleeping because I was like.
You just smash cut from the guy saying.
Because I was so what I didn't say. Yeah, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything in response because there was nothing to say. I'm not going to escalate the situation. I'm not going to be like, "What are you talking about?" What I am going to do is basically take away and bring it to everyone who's listening and say, "What the fuck? Like, what the actual fuck?" Here, I'm like, this is a person who's in a team who is supposed to be doing a job, and this is, I thought, was, the more I thought about it, the more I got more kind of upset, and then I was thinking more about everything in general. I'm like, look, this is like the most like hippy dippy lovey like game of soccer you've ever seen, right? Like no one can do any wrong except when you're not playing your position. Like that's basically it, right? Like these are the rules. Like you picked up the ball, you can't pick up the ball, don't pick up the ball. You punch the person in the face, don't punch the person in the face. You can't do that, right? This is in that territory. This isn't like play better. This isn't like have more awareness. This is, well, it is to some degree. This is just like, hey, look, the reason they scored this super dinky lame ass goal was because you were just nowhere and you weren't paying attention, and like that's your job. That's your role for this quarter. Oh, by the way, don't worry, you're not stuck in, everyone moves around every quarter and blah blah blah. Of course, everyone wants to play up front. The point is like that was it. That was the context of the story, and this dad comes over after like 2.5 seconds after I had stopped talking and basically let his son off the hook. Like I've never seen anyone get let off the hook before. And had it been my son, they would still be cleaning up all of the remains on that pitch.
Oh my God.
I know I get really
hold on.
Angry about kids.
So in relation to what we're talking about this episode, what you're saying is this dad and our generation. Are you saying our generation?
I'm gonna lump myself. I'm gonna lump you.
Okay.
I'm gonna lump a number of us, and maybe some of those who are listening into it, which is you're only listening because you found that you're incredibly frustrated at either something you're doing or your kids are doing, but you most likely are intelligent enough and sophisticated enough to realize that it's a combination of something you're doing, but that we don't know what's going wrong, but something is kind of wrong, right? And so I think that my point about overcorrecting is, okay, you're already in this super like low stakes game, and here you are letting your kid off the hook off of that, simply teaching the rules and also essentially the fundamentals of what a team sport is meant to be. And you're
here. The dad he probably doesn't care about the kid learning the game. He just wants the kid to have some social activity or teamwork or whatever. But what you're saying is he's not letting the kid fail. And
correct.
Failing is a huge part of learning and becoming independent and ever wanting to do anything. And because we're making such safe spaces, even making this extra safe space within an already stupidly safe space,
correct,
we are coddling them so hard that we're robbing them of the ability to, like, I don't know, like learning how to live with getting something wrong or blowing
correct.
It.
For fuck's sake, guys. We grew up, right? Remember growing up and how many fucking children were missing in our lives with the milk cartons? Like there was children missing everywhere. I mean, everyone was.
We were very scared of it.
Man. And so then when we grew up, we're like, man, I'm not going to go missing. I'm going to make sure I know where my kid is at all times. And guess what? Now we do. Yeah. And guess where they are? Right next to us the whole time. And now what the problem is, I see, is honestly, if your kid can't play by themselves because they want you to play with them, you've fucked up. And I am guilty of that. I'm guilty. I realized my kid's like, oh, come and play with me. I'm like, dude, here's the thing. Like, no, I'm gonna say and sometimes I really love playing with my kid. Most of the time, it's like I don't like it anymore. Like I enjoy some things, but not all the things. The problem is that line. My dad absolutely not even for 1 minute fucking sat down and played the same toys that I'm playing with. No, not even for a second. No. But yet here I am. I'm like Legos. I'm doing this. Sure, he helped me Legos maybe a little bit, but like I'm like Bakugan and like his like.
So I think this is not specific to dads, but I think weighted toward dads in that we are trying so hard to be like, we're going to be the most involved parents of all time. Dads are going to become as good, like recognized as being as good and as involved as moms are and all this shit. So like, I think the helicopter parenting or like the being too involved in thinking that, you know, smothering or overly protecting is like being more loving or better for the kids or whatever. I think it's all it goes kind of part and parcel. Yeah. So I literally forgot what I was about to say.
Well, look, it goes into okay. So what is the net outcome of this? All right. So we came up. Maybe our parents got divorced. Maybe we had feelings of like, all right, like angry. Like our teachers sucked. Like we had really shitty teachers. Let's just say like some of us had corporal punishment in school.
You had Princess Diana as a teacher. She ruined.
That's true. But I also had a lot of corporal punishment. I mean, I had fully like was smacked around, no problem. I mean, like that happened. But you know, and again, this is where that you know, obviously you don't want to you can kind of go two ways with that. You can be like, oh, that happened to me and I turned out fine, or even though you might not have, versus like, oh, I'll make sure that never happens, you know, ever again. And I think the problem is that, and this is kind of, it really, I don't know if this is a micro problem or a macro problem. It feels a little macro the more I think about it.
History to decide.
Well, I guess, but I think we can also start to like recognize it, which is we're overcorrecting. we're starting to the wheel is starting to go the other side. What does that mean? It means I'm not quite sure, other than, like our kids are not independent enough in some cases, in a lot of cases. Some kids are very independent
Right.
enough.
They're
I'm
not
saying
used to doing stuff on their own,
they're
and
not used to doing stuff on
taking
their own.
risks.
They're not used. They're again, attention span. Like if it fails, if they can't build the thing fast enough, if they don't build it correctly,
Yeah.
I give up. Oh, so I need dad to sit down with me and finish building the goddamn Legos. Look,
So
dude, you just
there's so
have
many
it wrong.
times
You really messed it up. You didn't do what I told you.
there's so many times I tell my kids, I'm like, because they want to give up after like one or two tries of something. I'm like, no one is good at anything the first time they try it, or the first 10 times, like, except me. Like,
Yeah.
I am a prodigy.
Yeah.
You can't
Exactly.
look to me as an example. Almost nobody. This is why
Yeah.
you practice. The more you do it, the better you get, right? It's just a really tough thing to convey. Like, how do you teach perseverance? And it's just, you just
Well,
hope that like they find something they love and that flicks the switch. But it used to be you had to do it even if you didn't love it, right? Like, and I
yeah.
think
Well,
not so much.
and I think that's a really good point. I mean, so how do you teach it? Well, you teach it often by just showing, right? Like you just do the thing,
which
right?
I'm not good at that.
And so there we go.
Time.
Maybe that's the root of it. To learn by doing. Oh shit. Well,
100%.
that's going to be a problem because I don't like to do anything, and so there you
Yes.
go. I'm going to raise some really shitty kids, which is probably what we're on the trajectory.
Obviously.
Yeah. To be So I guess the first step in trying to fix a problem is identifying it. I think that's really what I'm
Very wise.
trying to figure out here. I mean, that set me back and has really got me thinking about how we're doing all of this stuff. Like I know a lot of, or there are kids out there, like, in their 10, 11, 12, love to cook, love to bake.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, but it's weird. My wife was a cook in a restaurant and a chef and whatnot, and so like cooking is like totally ingrained, except for when it comes to our kids and the kitchen and utensils and like things that are sharp or hot.
Right.
And I kind of realize, in the moment, like, oh no, you can't bake cookies, or I mean, we're letting our kid bake cookies, but everything has to be like, hey, can you come and take the tray out or something like that? There's some limit that they
you're
reach.
super nervous the whole time, right? And like, you were nervous 5 years ago when you maybe had a chance to like introduce them to stuff, but you're like, nope, not safe. And now when they're old enough to do it, they don't know how to do it. And you're like, yeah, I think part of being
They don't even want to. They don't want to.
Well, of course not. They're used to having it done for them.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but also it's like the fear.
Oh, right.
That has been driven into these kids about like, well, here, use a knife, and then this is how you kind of peel a thing, and you're like, you're using a sharp knife with your thumb and your finger, and you're like, yeah, and it's like, well, you got to kind of feel it, but yeah, this is how you peel stuff or whatever it might be, and
timid.
Yeah, it's timid, and so now that's led to this whole non-independent sort of. And not only that, but just a mindset. And I'm trying to think like that mindset of the parent where it's, again, the participation award thing, which I'm a fan of and I agree with. I think there should be participation awards, but I really also believe firmly that if your team is the winner, they have to get a really big fucking trophy, like a big ass. Something that someone covets. Why? Because that's going to spur people on. Now, the difference being is where we came from. It was like when we grew up, it was like the one team got the big ass trophy, and if you came second, it was like, well, tough shit.
But
asshole.
the problem with that isn't that one team got a trophy or that one team won. Like what they're trying to do with the participation trophy, like, you don't want kids to feel bad, but like if you can teach them to enjoy playing the game independent of winning, then you don't need to worry about participation trophies because they're just having fun. But if they're not having fun, like especially when they're really young, you're trying to coax them into sticking with it long enough to start to like it, which is difficult, especially with like something like baseball.
Like it's really weird. It was such a good point. I'm kind of confused and disoriented for a second. It was such a salient point. I'm not used to it.
Here's the thing, but to add to that, we tried to do we did baseball for a few years with my older kid. My younger kid is trying it, and he seems to like it even a little bit more, right? So maybe he'll stick with it a little longer. But we also did soccer with the oldest kid, and he had a bad experience like his first game and was done. And now there's no chance ever that he will ever pick up and try soccer again because we let him drop out, or we didn't like try it again immediately. And like, even if you don't like it then,
Right.
like he was so traumatized by that one thing that never got closed off. We never made him face it and try it again or anything like that, that he will never sniff soccer for the rest of his life. It's like burned onto his brain. But if we had like forced him, just give it a try. It's just a normal thing you might not like. He could eventually develop he might like it later at some point. But now it's just built up as this huge.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I have two examples for that. Like this again on this particular season, one of the kids that showed up like wouldn't play the first game, was just stood straight up and down, like just wouldn't move around, wouldn't do anything. And the dad was like, "Look, we're just trying to coax him out, and I don't know how this is going to work." And honestly, there was like one or two plays early on where he just kind of touched the ball and and now literally like a bit of a character arc, but he is absolutely without a doubt the fastest, one of the most skilled players. Yeah, it's really great. It was great to see, and the dad is super happy. And it's part of that. And one of the things I said, the dad was saying, I think we're just gonna like, he literally came to the first two games and just stood and didn't play and didn't want to do anything. And the dad was like, I think I'll just take him out. And I was like, no, just keep him in because, just keep him in and we'll see what we can do. And same thing happened with my daughter. My daughter did one season of soccer. She's like, cry, I hate it. And I was like, all right, here's the deal. You do one more season,
right,
and you'll never have to do it again. Just do one, but it's a commitment. Oh, and the other thing is the commitment to it, right? So on the one hand, there was talk of like, oh, well, just don't go this game or don't worry about this practice or whatever. And it's like, no, like that's the point. It's like,
right,
you got to commit, and it's like about showing up. It's about doing the work.
I agree with you completely. And I think one of the interesting subplot to this is that that's on us, right? And like us being like, we got to bring to this thing, whatever. Some of this stuff, maybe not for you, but certainly for me, some of this stuff ends up being a little bit like self-serving, right? Where it's like, I'm not going to force my kid to do something he doesn't like, but also that means I don't have to bring him to practice.
Right. Well, there we go.
Right? So it's a little bit of an ease of our load. And I think that can be, again,
well. Is it, if it isn't the consequences of my own decisions?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So this is more of a discipline thing, which I think we'll probably have another episode about soon, especially as both of our kids are older. But like, fuck, I lost my train of thought.
Well, no, I mean, look, I'm with you. I mean, I think the point. Look, the point is that you as parents, right? We are parents, right? We grew up in this time of divorced parents, of the 80s and 90s, and Parker Lewis Can't Lose and silk shirts and stuff like that. And now it's back, and we're like, yo, why didn't I keep any of that stuff? All I have are these jorts. Yeah, all I have are my jorts and my jegging.
You love jorts, white ones.
I love the blue ones that went down to your calf. What happened to those? Anyway, so I think what I found in kind of looking back and looking at my own mistakes, because I've made so many of them, and just trying to figure out like what has been right. No, I mean, there's things along, like there's all sorts of other stuff, like reading stuff, and like there's different kids require. I have 3 kids. Sure. Each one of my kids, it turns out, requires different amounts of attention. What the hell? Just really all be the same. Exactly. You know what I mean? Is that too hard to ask? Just all be the same. Also, be quiet, brush your teeth, and go to bed. That's not too hard. Okay.
So it's funny in this and talking about kind of like the independence thing, where like some of this is about not wanting to try. Some of it's just about not wanting to fail. It's us not forcing them to do things sometimes for whatever reason. There's lots of different reasons why it's going on, but I think it's funny because a bunch of people said that their daughters are much more independent than their sons, and people think it's like a gender breakdown. Do you see that? Yeah, I mean, your oldest daughter is very independent, right?
Yeah, she's super independent.
So how did you engender that kind of like ambition and perseverance and stuff in her as a parent that, I mean, are all your kids like that? Do you see that?
No, what I found is it's the certain tone of screaming that really just no. It's really a personality thing. My daughter has such a very distinct personality. Always did. Oh, it came out just
Right.
like, hey, this is it. This is what's happening. I'm cold right now. You know what I mean? Just not like I'm gonna hang and like chill. I'm like, no, it has to be dealt with right now. And that's really carried with her. It's kind of turned into, but to her credit, kind of she's been able to harness it for focus in certain areas, and which has been great.
See different levels of like independence from her than you do from like your middle kid.
Yeah. And exactly. Middle kid and younger kid is also just is different. Not, it's really strange. There's, like I said, they are different. But I think there are certain things like my oldest daughter, like we just never, like for whatever reason, we just never did sharp knives. And it's now really, I can't get it out of my head. Like my kids don't know how to pick up a sharp knife or what to do with a sharp knife. They only know like these super lame butter knives.
All right.
And it's like, I literally, it's like, what an utter failure. She's,
a couple of people.
She's going into high school. Like, holy shit, dude. I'm going to buy these guys butterfly knives just to fucking overcorrect.
But a couple people said that one of the reasons their kids aren't independent is because they haven't taught them this stuff, right? And in like my son, every once in a while, I'll be like, I don't understand how you don't know how to do that. He'll be like, you haven't shown me. Some of that stuff is valid. A lot of the time, it's just something like that. You can't be shown. It's just something you look at it and you know that's how it works. So like just
right.
Like
cleaning it up, like cleaning something up or putting it away. I don't know how to put it away. What do you mean you don't know how to put it away?
You can get it down from the cabinet, open it and eat from it. You can put it back up into the cabinet. Right? You never showed me. Like when he had trouble like buttering like toast and stuff. And a bunch of people said that their kids can't butter toast. I don't know. I just like stuff like that is minor, but like I've never like my wife has done some of this, right? She's baked with my kids and done a little bit of cooking with them, but like I've never like shown my kid how to do something. Part of the reason is that I don't know how to do anything. I'm not like a DIY guy. I'm not going to show him how to like, repair a hole in the ceiling or like I don't know how to do anything like that. So most of the stuff I can do is pretty intangible. So I don't know, either you got it or you're not, buddy, or you don't.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of stuff like I do feel bad sometimes. Like I need to show him how to do this, how to do that, and sometimes it seems like they're behind. Sometimes it's hard to judge because it's been a year and a half of a pandemic and you're not around other kids and everybody's getting stunted a little bit.
Right. So here's what I'm saying. I'm saying, all right, last year was a bye year, up to now. So we've got a year and a half under our belts. We got to cut the shit. We got to snap out of it. And I'm using the royal we here. I'm including myself for sure, but I'm also including you, including all of us. We gotta know that overcorrecting is happening, and we gotta just make sure that we're doing it in the right way, and just also be super cognizant of it, because man, you cannot let your kid off the hook for letting in the lamest goal of the season, and you just can't do that.
So
and if you are doing that, you're doing something wrong.
In general, generationally and decade-wise, we're definitely more guilty of like coddling our kids, than previous generations, the previous eras, right? I think that's safe to say. But during the past year and a half, during the pandemic and stuff, like people felt justified to do that. So like it got even to more inflated levels. So like I wrote a tweet yesterday where I was like, are they going to announce when the pandemic is over? Because I gotta stop giving my kids all this leeway. Like I need to know.
Well, there we go, right? I think we talked a little bit about the mental health of it all, the kids, and like the way we're, already, again, like our interaction, like every parent I knew growing up. You think that there was like a George or a Daisy and Bob, and like, no, it was all Mr. and Mrs. The whole time it was Mr. and Mrs. Right? Like, and so now, but I mean, like, okay, I'm not so stuck up on that, but I get it. I get it. I think that's the right move, but that has consequences. Like everything has consequences, and so what it means is like when they're going out to work, I guess the point is are we setting them up for this future that just doesn't exist, right? Like are we getting them ready for something that will never be?
Well,
And
are we
if
getting
you
them ready at all, right? So
well, that's what I mean. Like, if you're gonna let someone off the hook for something that is as lame and I'm just gonna kind of use this as the
God, you
temple.
hate
I,
this guy
I
so
really,
much.
it was so offensive to
Did he
me.
hear you? Did he hear
No,
you
I
like
didn't. I
admonish
know.
the
Did you?
team?
No, did you hear me under my breath say, "I'm gonna
No.
pack this"?
Before he said anything to his kid, did
Of
he hear
course he
you
did. Of
admonish the
course he
team?
did. Of course. And by the way, it wasn't like, oh, as a team, it was like, no, 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 you on the team, you as an individual, you messed up. You were
Do
not in
you
the right
think
spot, and
the
that
dad
was
saw
a
that and was
yeah,
mad at you? It was
yeah.
like, this guy's a dick.
I absolutely believe that. And what he did was he undid what I said by saying, it's okay, you're fine, you did everything right. Not okay, you have a position to play on this team and you weren't playing on it, and not like maybe help me by reinforce. By the way, I didn't come down on the kid.
You're a
I
real
was like,
Sensei Kreese type. I know what you're like. You're the bad guy in Karate Kid. You're teaching these kids fucking no mercy. You're
yeah,
like
no,
first.
trust me, I'm Mr. Miyagi all day long. They're like, why are we painting your fence? Why are we painting your fence? And I'm like, trust me, you'll find out soon. And I throw a punch and it just lands right in their face. And they're like,
Nice.
I don't understand what just happened. And I go, I know. So no,
My
I would
point
never
is,
do
you
that.
sound like you're scared, like a scary coach. But
Not
I
a
don't
scary,
think you do.
not a
I don't
scary
think
coach.
you do.
I'm what I do is I don't, I'm not, it's I'm not light with the way that, because at the end of the day, that's not how I believe. I believe like to encourage people, like strongly encourage them, like, come on, man, you can definitely do it.
So,
Or like, come on, man, that was your ball, like that kind of thing. Like
knowing
not,
you,
not
I don't
saying
think you're
what the fuck.
scary, but I think you're like down to
I'm
business,
intense.
serious,
Yeah.
and yeah. But regardless of that, I just think it's funny that the kid's dad
Yeah.
may have been like consciously been like, "Fuck this coach." Like,
No,
do you
he
think they're
was.
talking
No,
about you?
100%. No,
Do you
that's
think they're talking about you in the league?
again, I completely, I imagine that he took personal offense to the fact that I was telling his kid that he had done something wrong, which essentially I was. You were not in your position, but
Right.
in the grandest scheme of you were doing something wrong, which is you were a child trying to learn a sport and you didn't do something correct. So I'm trying
Right.
to offer. I'm not. By the way, I'm not trying to offer you guidance. I'm telling you how the game is played and how the
You've been
position is played.
hired to teach their kids
No,
the
you don't
game.
understand. I'm not hired at all. It's all volunteer.
But you know
And
what
the
I
only
mean.
reason I do it is to yell at these kids. It's the
Right.
only
Well,
thing that gives me hope.
but you're in that position ostensibly to teach the kids about the
Yeah.
game. If he stepped
Yeah.
into that and was like, "Don't worry about the game."
Correct. No, no. It was to the point of, again, I can only imagine. He's like, you're singling my kid out. Why would you? Well, because your kid is playing this particular position. And by the way, like that, it goes both ways. I mean, I've yelled at kids for doing other things, when they're not, like, the ball's right in front of them, they're not kicking it to score a goal. I'm yelling at them, come on. But the point is, I mean,
I want to go to one of these games.
yeah, it's
I
amazing.
can't wait.
And but I just, this was the first time that it happened where the dad was just immediately in a millisecond let his kid off the hook, just in a way. Again, I've said it 100 times now. The point is that it was so crystal clear. It was such an aha moment where it was like, oh shit.
This
I
is what
think
the
I've
grooming
done the
part's
same
been.
thing. I've probably done the same thing with my kids. This dad is so out of order. It's unbelievable.
So,
Like,
how many games you got left in the season?
we have one. We have next
Oh.
week. Yeah.
I was gonna say though, this is your chance. This is your group of guinea pigs for you to stop overcorrecting or correct your overcorrecting and start to instill the kind of independence and perseverance and stuff in the kids that you coach.
But I do that all day long
But
by
it keeps getting undone. You gotta like
forcing. Yeah. Trust me.
no
I know.
media, no
I
talking
know.
to the
I do
coaches.
this. Dude, I'm the kind of coach who's like, again, do it again.
And then the assistant coach is like, Peter, you sure these guys are
Yeah.
there? Again.
I said, water is for winners. And
I
then I
love
just
it.
pour it out.
So, It's funny though, because so like that's one of the reasons also you like enroll your kids in sports is for them to like especially something like karate or like one of those single sports you did, like you hoping they learn like humility and
Yeah,
independence and like a work ethic. That's part of the reason you put them into sports. Different sports teach different things, but
exactly. Otherwise, just take up cricket for God's sakes and be done with it.
I don't know anything about cricket. But
Yeah,
I'm sure
that
there
was
are
a that was a
people who are
massive burn to
fierce
all those cricket
competitors
fans
who
out
play
there.
cricket though.
Yeah.
That's the it's not easy. There's people in the playground around here that play it sometimes. No idea what's going on. It's really
Yeah.
hard for me to understand.
Neither do they. Neither do they. Do they play for 6 days straight? Because that's generally how you play cricket.
So I want to ask you. So we know what we're doing wrong, sort of. It's going to be impossible to correct. I appreciate
We
your.
know there's a problem. We know there's.
Um, do you so you generally think that kids today are much less independent from previous generations, partially because of the parenting we're doing and that kind of thing? How do you so aside from like the
Yeah.
risk stuff that you're protecting your kids from, are they good at doing anything else on their own? Um,
The- yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think, look,
do they
it's
do laundry? Do they take initiative? Do they, right?
well, this is a good. See, these are very good questions, and so we're starting to. I'm trying to foster a little kind of get up and go ness with through monetization. I'm trying to monetize. I'm trying to leverage some economics up in here by, so chores are one thing. You got to do your own chores. You got to make your own bed. You got to do your own stuff. But if you go above and beyond, you should be rewarded, is my personal philosophy. Now, it's been said there's other folks in the house who have a different opinion of this, and I don't want to go into I don't want to name names or anything like that. But let me just put it this way: they're a significant force in the household. They're actually the dominant,
biggest force.
Yeah, 100%.
The alpha.
There's no question. I mean, listen, I am middle management at best. And this comes straight from the top, which they don't like it. I'm trying to push through this initiative. It's not going well. It's not really landing. Okay. So, but anyway, that's what I'm trying to do anyway. Under the table, I'm still trying to push my initiative through, and sometimes it gets through, and that's very nice. So, 50 cents for making the bed, my bed. Hey, if they think that's a good idea, the good deal, then great. By the way, they are starting to learn the value of things. And I am also starting to learn the value of things as well, because I'm like, all right, 50 cents to make my bed.
Yeah.
And then they'll make the bed and they'll be like, that was just not worth 50 cents.
Right.
So just like, they're like, that's like at least $2, right? And I'm like, all right.
Like you're really lowballing them,
Well, I am, and then I realized,
boats, buddy.
then I realized, yeah, inflation. I'm still doing the $5 an hour minimum wage thing when I need to be reading.
So we've determined that two ways to help try to teach the kids the values, the independence and perseverance and all that stuff that we want are leading by example and bribing them.
Yeah, and bribing them.
Yeah.
And if your kids are afraid of sharp knives, buy them a butterfly knife and then show them some YouTube videos, and then let's just see what happens. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was riding in the back of my parents' Buick. I was probably between like 4 and 7. I know where we were, but I can't place my age, and I don't know exactly when we got rid of that car. I saw in the back seat a cigarette lighter. I did not know what it was. I asked my parents, like, what's that? And I think one of them must have said a cigarette lighter. And then I pushed it in, and I took it out and I pressed it on my thumb because I didn't know when I pushed it in. I didn't know what it was, right? And it really hurt. Obviously, the hot coils on my thumb, it got iced and stuff. So like, that's the kind of thing that as a parent, I want to prevent my kids from doing. But in so doing,
right,
I'm not teaching my kid that by doing that will hurt. Right. And that is more effective than being told it will hurt. Right. So sometimes you got to let your kids get like maimed or disfigured just to teach them a lesson is my point.
Yeah. And that's why you leave a note. But, Mike, but I think this is it. This is a great parenting paradox. And I think if we can recognize it, at the very least, I don't have no answers, but I'm just saying I want to recognize it, because overcorrecting can potentially be, and overcorrecting is just simply swinging the other way. Of course, any extreme you go to is not going to be good, right? You want to kind of bring it more in the middle, no matter what, right?
So yeah.
And ultimately, if you're on the other side of the extreme, yeah, I mean, there you go. I mean, we you know,
The challenge is, and this is the same thing with discipline. This is what I was trying to say earlier. One of the two times I made a fool of myself tonight is that it's the now versus the later, right? And in overprotecting them now, we are leaving them more vulnerable later. Whereas if we could like stomach, letting them get hurt, letting them fail, letting them, get scolded by their coach, letting them try again and that kind of stuff, then they'll be tougher and more equipped to handle the world and stuff later. But just like with discipline, it's hard to get over the fact that like when your kid is like screaming in your face and it sucks, you're just like, fine, you give them what they want so they stop. And then that screws them up later because they get spoiled or whatever. It doesn't always happen. But like if you could withstand the screaming in the now and just teach them a lesson that way, then they might be better off later. But it's not as fun. So like making your kid do something he doesn't want to do and trying again, or like watching your kid fail sucks for the parent.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're like, nope, like let's.
Yeah, I mean, look,
that's and then later it backfires.
That's a good point. I mean, in some ways, well, and I think I'm just going to reiterate what you said, but just like, our kids' failure is also our failure, right? And then we want to protect ourselves from watching our kids fail in certain circumstances. And maybe this was part of it. Maybe the dad had an issue with soccer or something. Who knows, right? But like, but again, I mean, the point is that, yeah, I mean, I would say like I have a pretty strong opinion of a lot of this stuff, and I'm, again, what we do this podcast because I think this is, I just love talking about this stuff because I think it's really interesting because you said at the very beginning, look, we're like modern dads. What is a modern dad? A dad is someone who really wants to do the best they possibly can for their entire family and their kids, and be there and not travel. And like my dad traveled my entire childhood. But yet, but this is the other thing. And yet, I don't ever like he like came to soccer games and stuff like that. Like I don't ever. I mean, he didn't come to every single one, but that was fine. Like he came to enough of them.
I think, look, based on the fact that you are not more successful than you are, I'd say he came to too many, right?
I think
cut it back a few.
Look, I go back. Listen, I go back. I always go back to Bruce Springsteen. Look, if he had had a great dad, we never would have had Bruce Springsteen.
Have you ever seen or read the book by Ira Levin? The movie is called Boys from Brazil, and it is about a bunch of neo-Nazis, or not even neo-Nazis, Nazis who are still alive, who are trying to clone Hitler. And they actually do like clone him. But then what they do is they're trying to replicate for each clone the circumstances of Hitler's life that made him into the psychopath that they like worshipped and who committed genocide. So like they would kill his dad at the same age their original Hitler's dad was killed. It's just pulp crap. It's so entertaining. I've never actually seen the movie, but I read the book. But that's the thing. Like,
make your kid read this book.
Well, they could never do it, right? Because like, there's so many different unique circumstances that, like you said with your oldest daughter, like her personality, it's like an innate personality that if she's being coddled or overcorrected or whatever, she's seemingly been able to overcome just by that, right? And then some of it is taught, and some of it is circumstance, and some of it is genetics, right? It's just a mess. So my point is, it doesn't matter what we do, everybody give up.
Well, yeah. So with that, it's just don't worry about it. Just put on them sweatpants and just slide on into a wine bath. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like I say, I think just kind of identifying it, like again, my biggest overcorrecting is the fact that my kid doesn't know how to none of my kids know how to use sharp knives. And that's 100% my fault. Why? Because we just never, I cut their food up. That's fucking so fucking lame.
It's like,
and that's so lame. And I'm going to, that's this whole thing just kind of started to unravel a whole bunch of questions about how my parenting style is.
So, it's sort of a flip. So this maybe undermines your thesis a little bit, at least generationally. But every once in a while, somebody will like post some kind of meme about how kids in the 70s or 80s, they would say like, "Hey, can you teach me how to do my taxes?" They're like, "No, we're teaching you to square dance," right? Like that's what they did in elementary school, and like you should, instead of learning like basic life skills, you're learning more like theoretical or random stuff. Obviously, the arts are important. I'm not knocking
Right.
the art, but I do think you keep bringing up the sharp knives, and like there's a lot of kitchen oriented stuff that like we don't have home ec anymore, right? Like we
Right,
don't,
right.
that stuff that, I mean, I'm sure somewhere in like Kansas or something they have it. No offense, Kansas. But right, those kind of things, the practical skills aren't taught. The parents are supposed to teach the practical skills, and we're sort of not doing that either, I think.
Right.
So it's just we're raising kids who don't try and don't care, and we're not doing a good job of teaching them things. It's just.
So listen, if anyone has some sort of like neurosis, psychosis, like just listen to future and post episodes of Dad and Buried where No, like I said, I think it's an observation. It's about thinking through what are the things that you want to try and correct for, and what are the things you want to keep. Look, I'm a big believer in like not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is a weird expression, but I kind of always lean on it. Which is like, we tend to always be like, oh, this is the new thing, forget that old thing.
Start from scratch.
And ultimately it's really always somewhere in the middle, which is this is like markedly better than what we had been doing, but it's not so much better that there are still good things that
right.
were happening.
And not every new technique is better. A lot of them are, but not every single one is, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's interesting. So I think this was a little bit different episode than I think we often have. We used the comments and stuff we gotten as a guideline instead of reciting a lot of them. And instead, you and I, we just riffed on it.
Yeah. Did we riff, boy?
We chopped it up is what we did. We took it out. We chopped it up. We're trying to teach our kids. Did you ever see Royal Tenenbaums?
With our plastic IKEA knives.
Did you see Royal Tenenbaums?
Of course I did.
So Gene Hackman is like an older generation guy who's trying to teach the kids, like, you got to take it out. You got to put a brick through the other guy's windshield, right?
Yeah.
And whereas Ben Stiller is teaching them to be like, all right, you got to run out, get out of here, everything regimented, no attachments, right?
Well, that's actually a great. Let's talk about that for a second.
That's for Brazil and Royal Tenenbaums.
No, but that particular dynamic, that Royal Tenenbaums, that example of how Ben Stiller's character came from Royal Tenenbaum, the most laid back, the most sort of suave, like the guy who was never there, right? No, creates. I know it was Ari and Uzi, but what's Ben
Stiller's name?
Yeah, what's Ben's whatever. So he then creates this character who's so neurotic.
Yeah.
Because he's had none of it. He's had nothing, and he's had to develop all of it by himself.
In bubble wrap. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's again, it's just that over correcting. I'm not saying you become Royal Tenenbaum. I'm not saying no, it's in the
middle, like you said. Royal Tenenbaum wasn't great. Ben Stiller's character was trash. Both of them needed to meet in the middle of each of their respective things. So.
Yeah, that would have made a much better movie if everyone was just much more even keeled, and the drama, and then just kind of they just took the conflict down like a couple notches. That would have made a much better movie. Yeah.
So like I'm just this was a fun episode in which we just they'll probably show this at Harvard.
Right? Really?
Right? Yeah. I mean,
the Harvard of the South, Clemson.
Is that what it is? The Harvard of the South. But it was fun, just ripping into it a little bit. It's been a while since we've had some of the healthy discourse, right?
Yeah. Normally it's been very unhealthy discourse, very, very dark, very, very dark.
Well, look, I think we brought up a handful of good movies tonight, which is, at the end of the day,
that's always the most important.
I should start listing movies we talked about and just mention like the three, and then Boys from Brazil, Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, you should do that. That would be such a great.
It's only
like the Criterion, like the Criterion collection. Just
if
like
you're on Patreon, you can get like capsule reviews of the movies we mentioned. I'll write my own little capsule reviews, so you can throw us some money on Patreon or on Anchor. You can subscribe, listen, and like wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube, and check me out on Instagram, where I usually pose the episode topic and ask for some input. We did get a lot of input this week. Again, we didn't quote a ton of them, but we used it as guideposts because you know what?
I think we should reuse some of this. A lot of it was good
Yeah,
feedback.
I think so
We should
too. But
reuse it for.
the fact is, you and I are the experts. The people are listening to learn
Of
from
course.
us,
I mean,
right?
of course. For God's sakes, I have over 13 years of parenting experience. So, yeah.
Well, you're way ahead of me. As we said, you got one more kid and 3 more years. So, congratulations to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. Accept this award on behalf of all parents. And so I think we just need to leave it, which is stay strong, stay frosty.
Stay frosty.
And stay, I guess, frosty and vigilant. I was going to say stay vigilant.
Cold,
that's the same. So, just stay cognizant. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Stay away from sharp knives.
Stay away from sharp knives. All right. We'll see you next time.
I don't know why you would still be watching This Isn't a Marvel Movie, no matter how much I look like Paul Rudd, which you can deny it all you want. It's there in the eyes, I think. I'm young looking like him. If you enjoyed the podcast, which you obviously did or you wouldn't be listening still, sign up on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you want to listen to. Comment here on YouTube, subscribe, hit that like button. We want to hear from you. Comments, questions, dirty jokes, money, all the money you can give us. We'd love it all. Catch you next time.